Hello, and welcome to another edition of Water Wellness and the importance that water has on our lives. Today, University of Maryland Extension Water Quality Specialist Dr. Andy Lazore is going to talk about PFAS. Andy, we hear a lot about PFAS in the news, and your title for today's podcast intrigues me. I am wondering what you mean and what do we need to know about PFAS?
Yeah, you're right, Elizabeth. We do hear a lot about PFAS, and today's title, Got PFAS? Unfortunately, we all do, is a little bit of a play on a catchy phrase to hopefully bring attention to a contamination issue that negatively affects all of us. In fact, PFAS pollution is a global contamination issue, and perhaps along with, say, microplastics, may be the greatest contamination situation that we've seen. There's a lot of great research done on PFAS pollution, and so what I'd like to do is share a little bit about what they are, what the health risks are, how we're exposed, and what can we do.
So what is PFAS?
Yeah, so PFAS is a group of what's called per- and polyfluoroalkyl compounds that have this carbon-fluorine bond, which is especially strong and therefore hard to break down. And it's this persistence that has led this group of compounds to be termed the forever chemicals. So they're so persistent that they can last hundreds of years, and trying to get rid of them, say through burning, for example, it doesn't destroy the bond. It just actually released that carbon-fluorine bond back into the air, which eventually is going to resettle. So these products began to be developed in the 1940s, with Teflon being one of the first product. And PFAS compounds are known for their non-stick, grease-repellent attributes. And since the 40s, we're not really sure, but 10 to 15,000 of these compounds have been produced. And they're found in literally hundreds of products that we use daily. We probably are familiar with, say, Teflon products, non-stick cookware, for example, stain-resistant carpets, but stain-resistant clothing, food packaging, cleaning products, personal care products such as shampoos, nail polish, dental floss, eye makeup, wow, electronics, pesticides, paints, oils, and the list goes on and on.
Wow. So why are we concerned?
Well, here is the unfortunate news. We all have PFAS in our blood. So a lot of medical research has shown that PFAS can cause several major health issues in humans. And these include such things as thyroid disease, increased cholesterol, low infant birth weight, and several cancers, including kidney, testicular, pancreatic, and thyroid cancer. And what's really also concerning is that children are more susceptible and are often at a greater exposure than adults because they actually drink more water per body weight than adults do. And they could also be being exposed to PFAS that they're playing on carpets or they're out in the ground, and the PFAS could be in the soil, for example. And it also takes longer for PFAS to be eliminated from the body in children compared to adults. Another concerning factor with PFAS is that it can be transferred from pregnant mothers to the fetus and also to infants through breast milk. So you can see there's a lot of reasons why we should be concerned about PFAS.
So how are we getting exposed to it?
Well, as you might imagine, with hundreds and hundreds of PFAS containing products that we use daily, there's a variety of ways that we could be exposed. For example, such as clothing, fabrics, carpets, cosmetics, and other personal care products, and paints. There is skin exposure, for example. Inhalation, such as dust particles from fabrics, for example, as they break down. So it's in our air that we could possibly breathe. The main mode of exposure is actually ingestion. All right, we take it in through our drinking water or our foods. So, for example, if food packaging products have PFAS in it, there's a potential ingestion exposure. PFAS gets in our surface and groundwaters from multiple ways, including discharge from industrial operations. These are the chemical plants, airports that use this PFAS containing firefighting foams, what's known as AFFF, from wastewater treatment plants, and the biosolids from these plants that are used on some farms as fertilizer. And then also think about all the products that PFAS are in, and we use them. What do? We're a throwaway society. So we throw these things away, and they break down and start to decompose, and the PFAS, again, gets into the soil, which ultimately can get into our water supplies. So, again, PFAS, it's everywhere, but it also gets into the food chain by being, plants will pick it up, for example, and take it in. And if it's in our waters, then our seafoods, or freshwater fish, saltwater fish, shellfish, whatever the case may be, can also potentially pick it up. Another means of exposure that's gaining a lot of news attention is on farms, where they've been using biosolids for, in some cases, decades as a low-cost fertilizer source. Now that we know that using biosolids is contaminating soils, I would say it's coming at a very high cost. But what happens again, PFAS gets into soil, it's taken up by either food crops or forage crops, and then the animals feed on this forage, and again can get into the meat, or in some cases get into the milk, on dairy operations. So again, a lot of potential mechanisms for being exposure, and we need to be aware of these so that we know how to try to reduce that exposure.
What can we do to reduce the exposure?
Yeah, well, okay, a couple of things. All right, the first thing is becoming aware. Just like so many other issues, knowing what the risks are can really help us develop a plan, a personal plan on how we can reduce the exposure and protect our health. So since drinking water and food are the two greatest exposure risks, we need to better understand the quality of our drinking water and to treat it if necessary. So for example, if you're on public water, and you'll know that if you get a monthly bill, that utility is regulated by the state, some sort of environmental protection agency, and in turn the U.S. EPA regulates it on a national basis. But each utility is going to be required by 2027 to complete monitoring for PFAS and to notify their customers. So you can currently contact your utility and ask for what's called a Consumer Confidence Report. It's an annual report that's to be provided to all consumers. And some of those utilities may be testing for PFAS and may report that on the report. So get that report, and that'll help you to better understand your water quality. Now, if you're on a well, you're basically responsible for testing. And well water quality overall is good, but there are areas, and certainly if you're located near an industrial site that produces these chemicals, that can be a concern. Or if you're located near an airport, it has been found that groundwater has elevated PFAS around these areas. So you need to be aware of that. The other thing is that even with public water or well water, you could do your own treatment. For example, there's two types of filters in particular that work well on homes. One's called a reverse osmosis, or RO filter, and the other is an activated carbon filter. These have been shown to be very effective in removing PFAS. Just note that the RO filter have been shown to actually remove more of the different types of compounds that are out there. Another thing we can do to reduce our exposure is to understand our foods and consider buying, for example, organic, or try to determine if the farm uses any sort of biosolids or PFAS containing pesticides. That may be difficult to do, okay, because we don't know. We go to the grocery store and products aren't PFAS labeled, so we don't know. But think about it, that might be a way to kind of better understand how to reduce your risk. The other thing is that when you're shopping for seafood, look at your local state game and fish agency. They have seafood consumption advisories now for PFAS, so that may be another option for you to look at. The other thing you can do is you can shop for PFAS-free products. There are some manufacturers that are becoming very aware of the problem with PFAS, and a few are labeling their products as PFAS-free. And there's also some great resources on PFAS-free products on the web. So check that out as well.
Are there other things we can do?
Yeah, besides those individual awareness and shopping, drinking water concerns, there's been over the past couple of years efforts by a number of individuals, citizens, environmental organizations, scientists, even policymakers to develop PFAS regulations, including PFAS bans. For example, there's about 8 states currently that have implemented some form of a PFAS ban in certain products. These could include such things as, food packaging and firefighting foam. For example, Minnesota just recently in July initiated a ban on PFAS in 11 major groups of products, and these include like carpets, cookware, cosmetics, textile, dental floss, ski wax, and furniture. And they're actually expanding that ban to all products in the early 2030s unless it's deemed unavoidable. And then other states are exploring legislation, and including here in Maryland, there's currently a bill to ban PFAS containing pesticides. So becoming aware of the issue and how you can reduce your exposure is probably the biggest thing you can do individually. But you can also consider getting involved in local and state discussions on the issue, and maybe possibly share your concerns with your legislators. The deal is that PFAS has been impacting our environment and health for 70 plus years, and it's very persistent and it's prevalent in nature, and it's just going to take a long time, and we're going to have a diverse set of tools or actions to address this issue.
Andy, thank you so much. If you'd like more information or resources on water quality, septics, wells, groundwater, or ponds, please check out our state water quality specialist, Andrew Lazor's YouTube channel for videos and podcasts. That's Water Quality, University of Maryland Extension. The website, Google UME Wells and Septics, or his Facebook page, University of Maryland Water Quality. Also, please register through our website for our next Wednesday Water webinar on March 19th, where Andy will discuss flooding and sea level rise impacts to wells and septic systems. Thank you all for tuning in.